Hello, everybody, and welcome to another pricing Q&A.
Yeah, so my question is regarding the value. So every time I have to send an offer, if it's a bigger offer, I always, not always, but sometimes ask my colleague, my friend, who is also a photographer. So like, what do you think? How much would you charge for this type of business? And I think it's always like the starting point of making an offer is what is the value of the business to us. Like I would be satisfied to do this job for this amount of money. But the real thing is that we don't really know what's the real value for the client. Maybe for the client, it's a bigger value. So how do we determine better, or what kind of steps we can take to better understand what is the real value for the client for that job? Because maybe the clients would be willing to accept 2,000 euros and we would put, I don't know, 1,000 euros. You know what I mean? So I think there's a difference here. And for people who offer services, maybe they don't know all the time what's the best value.
You're asking if you're not calculating the value of your service by adding up the cost of all necessary steps, what can you use, right? How do you know the objective value? The trick here is that value, especially in the value-based pricing kind of sense, is not really objective. Doing the same things and therefore having the same costs will result in different value for different customer. It's impossible to calculate value based on your cost, like you said, because the value is not really about you, it's about the client. So to calculate value, you first need to know what the problem is that you're solving, because somebody can call a divorce lawyer to help them change their life, or someone can call the same divorce lawyer just to scare the significant other into changing their bathroom habits, right? Not meaning to go through with anything. So the call may even last the same, but the value is completely different, although the divorce lawyer basically spent the exact amount of time on it, right? To know the value, you have to know what they're trying to achieve, not what you need to do, and see what value they put in it. What will that change exactly, right? And then you can actually ask, you can actually assess, you can get to a number and quote a percentage of that number, and then see what steps can you actually do within that price. So that's basically how you determine value. But to do that, you have to enter a conversation. You can't sit down in front of a table and say, this is the value to my client. It's the tricky part, of course, but it also enables you to do the price differences that you talked about. Because a client who is prepared to give you 2,000 euros won't care that you usually do this or you usually do that. If it's worth to him, it's worth to him, right? Okay.
So I have a question on that.
Okay.
So can you elaborate on your example? So let's say I'm the client, and you say, okay, I can be your divorce attorney for if you want. And so you've described two different scenarios to me. One is you want to change your partner's habits. So what example you gave, send them a letter or give them a call. Or the other is you want me to change your whole life in terms of your relationship. So how do you assess for me what the value is? How do we have that conversation?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so you're the client, I'm the divorce lawyer. Yeah. So as far as I know about divorce lawyering, I would probably ask, so what the change would mean basically for you. And as soon as I figured out something trivial like the bathroom habit stuff, I would probably stop the value negotiation and just drop cover-all charge, which prevents people from wasting my time. So if I would normally charge, I don't know, 500 for 1 hour of work, I would charge here like 700 or 1,000, simply because
Yes.
I don't like my time wasted. But if they're
Yes.
prepared to pay that for the change of bathroom habits, I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that. I probably won't have a lot of that type of work, right? And if I do, I will just jack up the price once more until people don't want to pay that. But if it's the change my life kind of story, then we can go on. Then we can say, okay, so what kind of assets are in there? What do you care about? What don't you care about? Not fully in detail, but just to see that the pot is, I don't know, 500,000 or 250,000, and then say, okay, so I could help you. This would be this amount of work from your side, because that's what you care about, right? And in addition to that time cost, my cost would be, let's say, 15% of the pot. And if they say yes, that's something that we can talk about, right? Then I can sit back and see what can I actually offer for that amount of money. So not first count the steps and then count the costs. First, see how much money you got, how much money you are you prepared to divulge, and then see what I can do about that. Of course,
Okay.
I would not propose a sum that would not cover everything that is barely needed, but you're an expert. Or in this case, I'm an expert, right? I would not want to give you a bare bones service. So maybe there's room in there for us to have a champagne on me once we're done. Usually a client will appreciate that, although he fully paid for that champagne.
It's an interesting question. So to ask the client, so how much you're prepared to pay for that? That's a rabbit hole down which you don't want to go.
No.
Discussing okay, so what's it worth to you almost seems like the person's kind of trying to get as much of your money as they can. So to have a conversation, so let's change the example. I know divorce attorneys are exciting, but to come out of that realm,
Okay.
and we talk about, some of the work that I do, helping people in terms of their pipeline, creating prospects. So if I'm hearing you properly, the conversation would go something along the lines of, okay, so what value do you need in your pipeline in the next 12 months? How much new business do you need?
Yes, exactly.
And so the person goes, like $100,000.
Usually people would say I don't know, and of course they don't, right? That's what I usually say. Of course you don't know, you don't have a crystal ball, neither do I, but what do you think, right? So you're probably not calling me to make a 2% change, right? And people will say, well, no, like, I don't know, 10%, 20%, 30%. Okay, cool. So how much is it now? I mean, that's public information usually, right? So how much is it now? Okay. So 30%, if they said 30% of what you're doing now is this much, right? Is that kind of a thing that you were thinking about? Ballpark? They can say yes, they can say no, but it's their numbers. They feel in control because they are in control of them, right? You can't say how much is this worth to you because they don't know that, but you can see what change would that make. What's the reason for which they want to do this in the first place, and that reason is, in business to business, usually a number, and it's not that hard to get to that number and then position yourself within. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I get the point about if you ask someone what's it worth to you, it's like a chiropractor asking you what it's worth to you for back solving.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, it's worth like $10,000. Okay, I'll have 25% of it. It's
No.
it's ludicrous.
No, but what you can do as a chiropractor. So I'll take that challenge. I'll take it. You can say, okay, so your back hurting. That must be affecting your routine. Yes, of course. Each morning I need to have an hour extra just to get out of bed. Oh, that's horrible. And I also can't sleep. Okay, because of it. So if you could have an hour a day, right, back and get some sound sleep, would that affect how much would that affect your business? Oh, I'd be much more productive. Okay, now we can go on, right? So it's getting the answer on how much for the spine without being comically ludicrous about it.
I like your analogy about the pipeline, because so the client says, I want some help with my pipeline. Okay, fine. How much do you need? Well, I don't know. Well, how much do you think you need? Oh, $100,000. Okay, good.
Okay.
And so now you can play with a number and say, well,
Yes.
$100,000. So $2,000 a month will get you there, 25% of the amount.
Yes. Yes.
Because then the other thing that the client now knows, you promised me 100,000.
Of course.
You told me what you're going to charge me. Well,
yes, of course. Promise is a big word here. If somebody says, so you guarantee I get 100,000? No, if I guaranteed that, then it would cost 100,000. It costs 100,000 to get 100,000, right? But based on my results, I would definitely think that it's a much larger than a 25% chance that you will get your 100,000, right? And you're paying just the 25%. So the odds are ever in your favor, as they say in Hunger Games. So no, you're not guaranteeing, because you have no idea what they based their numbers on, and you have no control over that. And you also sometimes don't have control over implementation, and basically you don't have control. But influence is enough. You never have control over things. There are no experiments in economics, period. So you never have control, but you do have a degree of influence.
It just begs another question. You can stop me when I go too far down the rabbit hole. But in the model that we've talked about, if you're supposed to be an expert, you have a number. For the service that you want, the cost is $1,000 a month, whatever the number is. Now, when you're going in that kind of what's it worth for the client, that seems to be a conflicting model.
These are two completely different models, but they can be combined in high ticket pricing. So you say it's 1,000, and they say everybody else charges up to 200. What gives? And you can go, well, I can show you, and you show them that it's going to probably in their head going to be worth 100,000, and say, or well, maybe I went overboard. Let's say it's 10,000, 12,000, and says, you say what you think is more likely? That's a service that costs 200 will bring you 12,000, or the service that costs 1,000 will bring you 12,000. Because if you know a lot of opportunities to turn 200 into 12,000, I would like to invest. Oh, you don't? Yeah, didn't think so anyway. These are two different models, yes, but they are not necessarily conflicting. You can use them to basically back each other up.
And so in that model of, your regular thing of what you do at $1,000 a month or whatever it is, part of the experience that I go through is when I'm supposedly focused on what I'm doing and I'm dealing with a business owner, we come across other aspects that are causing them stress that in theory are not part of this. We never talked about that before. There's nowhere in our initial engagement or anything I talked about that I would have covered that particular aspect of running their business. so okay, to use a clearer example, if we're talking about prospecting, sales and marketing, and then we come across a discussion around positioning themselves and their change in fees, and go down the route of, okay, so why are you changing fees? What are you trying to achieve? It's part of your sales strategy. No, there's some stress from a cash flow perspective. And we talk about all those kinds of parameters. We're going down a rabbit hole that I'm comfortable with. I have expertise in it, been running my own business for 25 years, but clearly was not part of the original discussion. No one would ever have thought in their wildest dreams that me and the positioning they see, I could help them from a cash flow and cash management perspective. It's just an interesting experience.
Okay. So what's your question?
Getting beyond the realm of your original brief.
Okay.
I don't know, it's kind of, so you're an expert in this? Yes. And now we're talking about that? Yes. It just, I have to take a step back to work out how to perhaps redefine what I do, better define it.
Well, what you do is, we just talked about value, right? And I said it's the value depends on the problem that you're solving. So if the problem is that you're solving is somebody is having unsound sleep, somebody is worried about something, it can devolve into the realm of you doing things that you're not usually doing to solve the same problem, but you're still solving the same problem, right? So my usual go-to example for this is writing copy. I never in my life have charged for writing copy, but sometimes the services that I do demand that some short text be made for marketing purposes, which is writing copy. In a nutshell, and that's just a part of the implementation. You always want to be, as an expert, somebody who knows how to do things primarily, and then somebody who does things secondarily, right? It may seem like the same thing, but it's not. You want to be paid for knowing how to do things, and if and doing those things, or helping somebody cheaper do those things for the same client, that's extra, right? A brilliant lady from LinkedIn wrote a few days ago, they're not paying you to cut the wires, but to know which wires to cut, right? So if you usually cut the wires and now you have to push the button, doesn't matter. The problems that you're solving and the audience that you're solving it for are still the same, and there's nothing strange about that. If you define yourself as a baker and then you have to make a sausage, yes, that's strange, that's jarring. But if you define yourself as somebody who deals with, you know, specialty foods for gourmets, yeah, usually it's cakes, today it's sausage, tomorrow is going to be cake sausage or sausage cake. It doesn't matter. You're just somebody who knows these things, so it doesn't pay to let's say bury your head too deep into the things that you do to achieve it. The more important thing is that you know which wires to cut. I'm mixing metaphors here, but
I had a conversation with a client once, and I said, look, I would like to expand, we have some more capacity, so I'm looking for some more clients in your geography, region, etc. Do you know anyone, you know, we could talk about it? Yes, said no problem. And so then we started talking about, just remind me what it is that you do, kind of conversation. This was 6 months into our relationship. And then his comment back to me was that you do all these things and you didn't tell me about them. When we first started talking, I thought you were going to do this, and now you're doing all of this stuff for me. I didn't know you could do that.
It's usually good not to hit them with the list. We can, as a rule, specialists can do many of the things that the clients have no idea what to do with, and their eyes would glaze over after the second or the third thing that you say. So in an ongoing relationship, it's as you say, good to show them that you can do this or that. But you can't do that at the beginning unless you have a captive audience, which is actually captive.
I suppose one of the things you have to learn is that, okay, these things that you feel make you stand out, can you say them in 1 or 2 sentences at the beginning, and maybe you need to repeat them, but at least you've said them. Because like for me, the fact that I've been a software engineer and an accountant for 25 years, that's just in my blood. And
Yeah.
it's very relevant to what I do. I should probably mention that to people because it might explain some of my idiosyncrasy.
You're talking about it as if it was a condition.
But it is, because it means you look at things differently. I don't look at social media the same way other people do. I don't look at algorithms the same way other people do.
That's probably okay to warn people then. I have a lot of developer friends, so this one goes out to them. But anyway, it's okay to say my perspective is going to be different than yours. It's even sometimes as a consultant in any field, it's sometimes safe to say I can help you because I don't know all the things that you do. I look at it differently. This is a good expression that I have seen many times. You can't see what it says on the bottle from inside the bottle, right? You have to be on the outside to see, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes people get frustrated over it, that somebody can't see. So I'm not talking about clients here. I'm talking about consultants. How can't you see how this is different, right? When people compare you to amateurs, I think you asked me a question about that once. So it's very hard to compare expert services, right? But most of us don't know how to compare pharmaceutical products. So this costs 200. Is this basically the same as this that costs 20? Sometimes yes. Sometimes this is a generic drug and this is a branded one, and the chemicals are practically the same or exactly the same because they have to be the same, right? Sometimes no, definitely no. But this is for cough and this is for cough. Yeah, completely different things. Because not every cough is a cough, but
Yes.
most of us just cough, right? And you just want to stop freaking coughing. That's all that we want. It's not that we're dim or that we don't care about quality or care about whatever. We just have no idea where to start to compare cough medicines, right? It's a question of time and priorities more than anything else. It's the same with our customers. They usually have no idea where to start to compare your services to somebody else. So it's very important what you talk about, in effect, what you emphasize, because I said like 10 minutes ago, you can't talk about everything. So you have to choose what you talk about, and what you talk about will affect what they compare you on. So this can, sorry?
This has helped me because I'm making a list of the things that make me different. Because to your point, like you're talking about differences, you know, one of my things is I don't work, no algorithms, no advertising, no automation. I can tell you what all three are and how they work and why they work that way. I can also tell you that I don't work that way, and I can tell you why. So maybe that makes me your guy, or maybe it doesn't.
You absolutely have to know who they're going to probably compare you with, because there's a trap in there. I had a client who is does courses on a thing that is at least half of it is practice of law, and the other half is technical. It has to do with consumer rights on the internet. So she gives this course, and a university does as well. And when she talks about what makes her different from others, she likes to mention, well, she liked to mention that before she talked to me, that that she has 10 years of experience. And the university can say, well, that's funny. We have like 200 years, right? Of course, not on the same topic, but that's a distinction that no client is going to make, right? You don't want to get compared to a university by quoting the years of experience. What she now mentions, but didn't then instead, is that she's a lawyer who can actually code. And that's a huge thing, very, very topical in that area. And no such professor is available at the university or anywhere else in her competition. So the trap is, when you're making a list of what makes you different, right, is that some things that sound perfectly logical to emphasize, when you're considering yourself in a vacuum, you forget that you're never going to be in a vacuum. Even if you objectively are the only guy on earth who does these things the way you do, yes, and knowing you, you probably are, it doesn't matter, you're still going to be compared. Getting compared is compulsory. It's you are going to be compared, right? If the money that you ask is at all significant, if it's not, bubblegum level, then you're not avoiding you being compared to somebody else, rightly or wrongly. Just like we can't tell if two cough medicines could be compared in any universe, clients will compare you to people, who use algorithms because maybe they don't know what an algorithm is, or they don't care, right? So you can talk to a pharmacist and they can say, well, this one doesn't contain xylotropin or something. So I probably made some medically inclined people laugh right now. But yeah, that means nothing to me. Is that good that you don't use algorithm? Is it bad?
Yes.
I thought that Google works on algorithms.
Yeah. Yes.
So
no, but I think you have described it well, because in the space that I play in, the point is nobody cares. Not about algorithms. And when you emphasize it, you said something once about, some things should never be said. And so perhaps that's one of them. Oh, so you don't use an algorithm? Does that make you better or worse than the guy? And I don't actually understand what an algorithm is. Okay, now I've just overloaded. Now I can't make a decision.
Yes.
Sorry, next.
Yes, cat pictures.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. And also, you have to be careful with. So I got a question, which is still topical to this. Should I use 0.99? Right, rounded down. And the counter question that I always ask here is, why would you do that? So you're not selling pest dispensers, you're not selling dog collars, you're selling an expert service. So why would you do that? Well, it's usually good sales
Technique.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Because it makes it look cheaper. That's fine. It does, absolutely. But in your case, it can be good sales technique, but it's a bad marketing one, because why would you want to seem cheaper, right? Usually cheaper expert is, well, it's not an oxymoron, but it's a tricky thing, right? Cheaper dog color, fine. Cheaper burger is you know, let's go for some cheap burgers. Yeah, no. But a cheaper expert?
It's a bit like a cheaper heart surgeon. You worry about what they're going to leave in,
Yes.
or leave out, or whether you leave.
Yeah, leaving in general is starts to be questionable in that case. So, should you use the 99 trick? No, you probably really shouldn't, because you being marginally cheaper usually isn't important, and if it's important, it's bad. It makes you seem some shade of worse. So you want to seem cheaper, you're trying to trick me, or you're more desperate than the others, which means you don't have work, which means you're a client that nobody, an expert that nobody needs. So I probably don't need you either.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar to being always available. So this is my number on my website. You can call me anytime. No, I don't want to call you. Sorry, Paul, you wanted to say something.
The heart surgeon analogy made me think, like the heart surgeon. So if you're the cheapest heart surgeon in town and someone takes you up on the offer, maybe they're not the kind of patient you want to be working with either.
Exactly.
Maybe think of some professionals I'm dealing with that are grappling with their rates and increasing them. And this idea that, okay, so if I increase my rates, some of my clients will leave. And the point is, some clients you want to leave.
It's much more profitable if some of the clients leave. Yes. And you usually get the greater work satisfaction, and you don't groan when your phone rings and stuff like that. Yes, absolutely.
I suppose it's like the analogy with staff. Which staff do you mentor?
Okay.
The ones you want to keep.
Yeah, the ones you want to keep. It's this is a better example, but I've heard it with flossing, right? Which teeth do you floss, right? The ones that you want to keep. So I think it's better with staff. Okay, I think we went over enough today. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Božidar, and thank you all for silently listening. We will be back in this space in 2 minutes.
Everything changes.